Hi, I want to talk to you about what to look for when you buy one of these cameras. One good thing about the Contax rangefinder is they are kind of very vintage looking, feels like vintage, shooting 35mm film. At the same time, you don't break a bank. They're a lot cheaper than Leica. Although the quality of build it's up there with Leica. So I have three of these cameras, these Contax. The bottom one is Contax 2, the middle one is Contax 3A, and then the top is Contax 2A. So with the older Contax, this is probably when somebody tell you, well, someone mentioned to me about a Contax rangefinder. In my mind, I'm more thinking about the Contax 2A because this is very popular. Plus, the Russian Kiev camera also copied from the Contax 2, and they're even cheaper. They're almost the exact same as have the same look as a Contax 2. They didn't copy the 3 and the 3A and 2A. They kind of did. Like for example, I'm kind of deviate from what I want to talk about. It's how flat this is. This appears on the newer model of Kiev. You see, it just the back locks are recessed. Also, the release button recessed, and that's different from the Contax 2, because I feel like the cost of manufacture for this style is probably way more than keeping it like this. But these, I don't mind. Being flat is a lot easier to go in and out of the bag. Or the older one, yeah, it's more traditional, but it's kind of, they're not very slick. So one thing when you buy one of these cameras, so I'm gonna take this 3A out of the video because it's pretty much, well, actually, let me bring this back. One thing about 2A and the 3A, that 2A made an improvement, also the 2A versus the 2 is, to me, is this, other than there's an aesthetics difference, is this cold shoe location. So on the 2, the cold shoe is off center from the lens. This is evident on the 3A as well, but not so on the 2A. The 2A, the hot cold shoe is in the middle. So if you want to use a wider lens or something with a external rangefinder, it's a lot, so your finder can be very centered. Something that I feel like that's what I prefer. But for a wider angle lens, probably doesn't really matter that much. You're a little bit to the side on the on the viewfinder. After all the Contax rangefinder viewfinders are off the side anyway. And that's one thing I want to mention is these cameras do not have the frame lines, so you're not gonna get the parallax correction you see from the M cameras. You're gonna look through it. There, the frame, whatever you see through the frame is a 50mm lens field of view. Obviously, if you shoot something further away, it's more accurate than if you shoot something a little bit closer. So you have to bear that in mind. But when you buy these cameras, though, one thing I want to mention is these shutter are vertical travel metal curtain shutters. As you can see that on the Contax 2, I don't have it in here. Nothing. Why? Because the shutter is held together with a fabric, kind of like a silk-like fabric. Once that over the years become brittle and break, your shutter roll back inside, this camera is done. Unless you can find somebody who can replace the ribbon. They call it a ribbon, some kind of a ribbon. So it kind of sucks. So now this camera, unless I can find somebody who can fix it, is, let me put it this way, is pretty much a display piece. You can't really do anything with it. But on the 2A, you can see the shutter. It looks like this. So when you advance it, it just like so, fire it, it's vertical travel, and it's pretty. Looks like it's. I don't want to put my finger in here, but it looks like a pretty thick metal shutter. This is kind of an advancement over Leica because with these rangefinder camera, when people oftentimes carry it with a, especially with the lens cover, front lens cover off the camera, over time the lens will acting like a magnifier, so we'll start degrading the cloth, or on the if the shutter is cloth, to make a little tiny holes. It's very common with the vintage Leicas. Some require just simple patchwork. You can do it at home once you learn how to do it, but oftentimes there's just need to be replaced. And fortunately, those are cloth. You can find replacement. But for the Contax metal shutters, it's very difficult to find replacement.